I have to say that my son, the IT geek, has as many challenges and issues as you and I do, so I don't feel so bad. Anyway, he came with us this weekend, and guess what?
I didn't know he went with you. Okay.
Yeah, he went with us, and he brought his work laptop, and I was able to get Wi-Fi in my car. How sexy is that, right? So he could sit in the back seat and do his coding in the back seat, and of course he's talking to himself the whole time. And this idiot, why did he do it this way? This is stupid.
So, as my parents used to say, he comes by it honest.
Yeah, I hate to say that, but it's true.
I used to use that saying a lot, and my friend Benoit from France was like, "What does this mean?
What does that mean?" Or the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That's the other one, right?
But it was one of those things that like I had to think about, and I'm like, I don't know where that comes from or how it, it's not grammatically correct. What it, yeah. I mean, I know what it means, but it's like I can understand why that would be really confusing.
Yeah, right. He comes by it honestly. Yeah, well, the idioms, right? That's always the hardest part of any language, right?
Yeah.
I guess learning the idioms.
That was the first time that I kind of questioned it. I'm like, oh yeah, that is a weird.
Well, when you really start thinking about it, I mean, it's really like I was on a showing the other day, and the house that I was showing was one that I had actually sold to the person that's now selling it. I had sold it to them, but it was like back in the late 90s. So like 25, 28 years ago, something like that. I had sold them this house, and the house was built like right around 1900, and they were only the third owners of the home. The people that they bought it from were two maiden sisters that were born and raised in the house. Their folks had bought it from the person who bought it from the builder, who hadn't lived there very long, apparently, or something. I don't know, but or maybe they lost it in the Depression, or something like that. But they were born and raised in the house, and there was these two maiden sisters that lived there, and they were not young. They were like in their 60s or 70s at the time, and I'm sure they're both deceased now. But and I said to this guy that I was showing it to, I said, and they were a couple of pills, and he's like, then they were a couple of pills, I'll tell you. And he's like, now that's an expression I haven't heard in a long time, and so I'm like, that is true. Why do you, I mean, I don't know. Have you heard that expression? Is that a Midwestern? Yeah. I think it's a Midwestern thing, actually.
I don't know. I mean, it's an expression. I think it's pretty common. I don't think it's Midwestern.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why.
Like being a pill, she's a pill.
She's a pill, yeah. But yeah, think about that. What does that expression mean anyway?
What is hard to swallow, I guess.
Exactly. They're hard to swallow. Exactly. That's where it comes from. Because of course, I had to Google it then and see where did that expression come from. But somebody who's hard to swallow. But
my mom had several when I was growing up that, you just, when your parents use them, you just take it for granted, and you don't like break it down or whatever. And I remember I had moved to Chicago. I was here for a while, and I was at work, and I was on the phone with her, and she used one of them, and I was like, I just realized that is the weirdest.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it's how come him to do that?
How what?
How come him or her or whatever to do that?
What the hell does that mean?
Well, it's like you find out somebody said or did something that is really like disappointing or that you're confused by or disagree with.
Yeah.
And she would say, and it was like a comment in the family too, like, how come him to do that? Like
So that almost sounds like something that was because Bob grew up in we were in Sheboygan in Kohler. Bob was born and raised in Kohler, and his mother grew up on the farm in outside of Sheboygan Falls, which is west of Kohler. It's kind of south and west, and she grew up on the farm. Well, she never learned to speak English until she went to school, kindergarten. They spoke German at home, so it's very German community. And one of the things that he would say when something is finished, like when you were finished eating your dinner, you'd say, "That's all." And of course, in German, that would be "Das ist alles." So it was like a German expression that got transliterated into English. So that's almost kind of what that sounds like, something like that, what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from.
What language would that have been, I wonder? What language, what ancestry were they?
Oh, they like
American. They're just American.
American,
right?
yeah. American mutts, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is that, Bob always considered his heritage to be German and, and all that stuff. Well, then back in the 80s or early 90s, remember when the movie Roots came out and everybody got onto this Roots thing to find out their, trace their family trees, and somebody and his mother's side of the family got into this whole Roots thing and had her going out to the cemeteries to get dates and all that stuff. Well, they had found a relative of his that had been in the Civil War. He had a picture of the guy. He had found a picture of the guy. And it was weird because this was back in maybe the early 80s, late 70s, maybe a little earlier than I thought. And he had long hair and a beard, how they did in the Civil War. And Bob wore his hair exactly the same way. And it was like the spitting image of this guy, whoever this guy was, right? He looked exactly like this guy. And I always get a laugh out of how he considers himself to be German when in fact his family was here since the early 1800s.
Yeah, right.
So how German is that?
Yeah, years ago, it must have been 1990. Because it was a census year. I was living down on Printers Row, and I got the census form in the mail,
right?
And I got the household one.
Oh.
And anyway, I was hanging out across the street. There was a little market at the Dearborn station, a little grocery store, and I was friends with the owner, and we used to hang out there a lot with him and his family. His name was Naeem, and he was Palestinian, and he had come, not many years before from Palestine, and had a couple little like corner grocery stores down on the south side and that kind of thing. And anyway, I was telling him I got that census form and I had to fill it out, and it was for the household, and it was going to be a pain in the butt, blah blah blah, and I was saying they ask all these questions and it gets really complicated.
Right.
It was the long form or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, like what? And I was like, well, they're trying to find your ancestor. And I was like, who knows? And he was like, well, it's simple. He's like, where are your parents from? And I'm like, Oklahoma and Mississippi. And he was like, well, where were their parents from? I was like, Mississippi and Oklahoma. It was like, well, where were your great grandparents from? I was like, well, I know my grandmother's family came from Virginia. And I was kind of going through the list, and he was like, at one point he just stops and he goes, and I'll paraphrase, he was like, you're an effing Indian. To him, it was like the idea that you could go back that far in the United States was just like, he was just blown away.
You must have been an indigenous American.
Yeah. To them, it was like, everybody here came from somewhere.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's true, right? So, I mean, your folks must have been, or your ancestors must have been some of the Sooners that came out on the land rush, probably, huh?
I don't know that. My mom's family, my grandmother's family, and my grandfather there, were in Oklahoma, but they came. Well, I know my grandmother's family came like in the early 1900s from Virginia, so they wouldn't have been there. It was shortly after the land run. So I don't know if any of them came during that or after that, but but yeah, it was kind of funny. Just like he was looking at me just like that is, how is that possible? You know,
how's that even possible? Yeah.
Yeah.
My grandfather came through Ellis Island in the early 1900s from Denmark. He was a butter maker, my grandfather, and in fact, we stopped in Racine. He came. He would come to see us. We were stationed at Great Lakes, my dad, and he'd go up to Racine and hang out with the Danish community up there. They have a pretty large Danish community. And on our way home from Sheboygan, we stopped in Racine and got a couple of Kringles, brought them home, had to bring them home. They freeze really well.
Yes, they do. So
Oh
I have this idea I love Kringles, and I have this idea, and I still haven't done it, but maybe this year I will. So I have this idea of doing a birthday cake Kringle, in which you take different flavors of Kringle and stack them on top of each other.
Oh, wow.
And then cut it like a cake.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't that sound good?
It sounds a little over the top, actually.
Well, I mean, no more than any other cake.
Well, that's true, but well, I had a piece this morning. I got it out and had a piece before breakfast when and my thought was, oh my God, this is so rich. I don't know how you could eat more than a little sliver of it. It's all butter.
Well, I get the vegan one, so there's no butter. But
do they have but well, they use oil then, right? They use vegetable oil.
But it's still oil, yeah.
Yeah, it's still oil.
Still not as rich as the butter, but yeah, a lot of oil.
I don't know, if you're going to eat oil, if you're going to eat the fat, you might as well eat fat that tastes good, like butter.
But it's got the poison in it.
Yeah, spoken like the granddaughter of a butter maker, don't you think?
Yeah. Did they call them butterers?
It says on the back of the package that it takes them 3 days to make the Kringle crust, the dough. It's almost like a croissant, the way they fold the butter into the pastry. It's almost like a croissant. But
and for the people on the call that don't know what a Kringle is,
yeah, yeah. Who doesn't know what a Kringle is?
A lot of people don't know what a Kringle is.
A lot of people don't know what a Kringle is. It's like a Danish, well, like a pastry, but they make them in a large oval with a hole in the middle. I mean, so it's a ring. It's a ring, kind of like a donut, but nothing like a donut. But it's a large oval, and then they put different fillings on them. You can get them with, like, Bob got one that was a cherry filling, and like a Danish, you can get the different jellies, blueberry. You got one that was almond with marzipan in it, and they fold the dough over the filling. And in the
United States, they're pretty much only in Racine, Wisconsin.
I think so. I mean, I think so. And they're from what's the bakery that has the best of that, OH, which you can't. I mean, I know that they sell Kringles at the Jewel. I've seen them in the Jewel, but it's a different brand.
The Racine Kringle Company is the ones they sell at, like, Jewel and Trader
But they're not. But they're not as good.
Yeah.
They're not. I don't know. They're just like.
I forgot the name of the one I get.
It's OH is the one.
No, that's not the one that does the vegan ones. It's an old one. It's an old one in downtown Racine that's been there forever, but they've always made it with shortening. So it's not like it's like a new.
Oh, really? Huh.
All theirs are vegan because they've always been made with shortening. It's not like some new idea that they were trying to make a vegan.
Well, I don't know. How can that be any good?
Well, I mean, all of Southern cooking uses shortening, uses Crisco.
Yeah,
all the Southern biscuits, and everybody thinks it's butter, but it's not. It's Crisco.
Really? Oh, yeah. It's called O&H. It's called O&H Danish Bakery. I don't know what the O and the H stand for.
Well, that's not the one I'm talking
and
about.
And they have the authentic Danish Kringle. Oh, here, I can show a picture. Here's a picture of one. This one, gosh, they are not cheap. Bob went in and bought them, so I didn't know how much he spent.
It's Larson.
I think he dropped about $100 on Kringles.
The one I'm talking about is Larson Bakery in downtown Racine.
Okay, Larson. Well,
Larsen.
Huh?
Larsen, like the Danish spelling.
Right. Well, it'd have to be an SEN because that's the Danish way. Okay. See if I can. Okay, I'm going to blow it up so you can see. Here's one of the apple ones. Yum. And you can see
there's no frame of reference for size in that. I can.
Well, there's an apple. You can see
the
apples. You can see the cinnamon sticks. So you can see kind of how big
that one looks like perfectly round.
It's just being distorted somehow.
Yeah, they're kind of like elliptical and kind of
they're elliptical and they're elliptical.
That's the only catch with my stacking them into a cake is you got to get them similarly shaped and sized.
Yeah, that could be a bit of a challenge, and then like on my big fat Greek wedding, you have to put a flower pot in the middle of them.
Yeah.
a bunt.
A cakey.
Cakey. Oh, a cakey. Anything else we need to talk about before we sign off with our shenanigans?
I think we'll end it on the Kringle.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea.
We should have a Kringle party.
Kringle party. O&H and Racine. Okay, now wait a minute. Since we're talking about them, free advertising for good old O&H, the original, the authentic. Let's see. Here's one. Here's a pecan one.
I like the pecan ones. Those are good.
Yeah, me too. I love the nuts, but I mean, they probably have 30 different types of Kringles.
Yeah,
that you can get. And they have one out at the truck stop on Highway 20 there. That's where we stop at there. But the one that they have a couple that are right downtown Racine. The one that's right downtown Racine is at 4006 Durand Avenue. Mean anything to you? No. Anyway, when you go, you can also stop at the Johnson Wax Factory and take a tour of the Frank Lloyd Wright designed Johnson Wax Factory. They opened up the administration tower now. That's open, and you can.
They opened it back up because they weren't letting people in for a long time.
No, they opened it up a couple of years ago.
For safety reasons, they had shut it down.
But no, they reopened that a couple of years ago. So you can go take the tour of the Johnson Wax Factory and then stop and get a Kringle over at because it's like 2 blocks from there. So all right. On that
sounds good.
Yeah, on that happy note, we're not gonna we don't care about the snow, we don't care about the winter weather. Spring is coming.
All right, well, have a good week.
Bye.